Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 98th episode of the Veritas Fact-Finding Series. And today I'm joined by Mr. Kirk Morrison. Good morning, Kirk.
Morning, Anthony. Good to see you.
Likewise. Surfacing facts and revealing truths is a never-ending quest for us at Veritas. In each episode of our fact-finding series, we go on the ground to speak to industry professionals in an unscripted, candid video format to discover how we can make better investment decisions. In this series, and with everything we do, we believe the facts empower investors and that better information leads to better investment decisions. By way of background, my name is Anthony Scilipoti, and I'm the president and CEO of Veritas, which is an independent equity research firm based in Toronto, Canada. And I'm proud to say we're about to celebrate 22 years being 100% employee-owned and operated. And I have to note a very quick disclaimer. This broadcast is not to be taken as investment advice, and participants or employees of the Veritas group of companies may own securities discussed in this broadcast. While we love all our guests, and of course Kirk especially, this session may contain forward-looking statements, investment opinions, and comments that we may not agree with at all. Now, Kirk describes himself very modestly. He's a professional engineer with a mere 40 years of experience in the energy and resources, environmental, and infrastructure industries. Now, if we peel back the onion a little bit, we'll find out that he purchased and sold 2 engineering firms. He was recruited in 2008 to be CEO of an engineering firm called Cimarron, which was then taken over in 2012 by Stantec, where he proceeded to become an executive at Stantec, head up their energy resources group, and retired in 2020. And it's interesting because that takes us to where we are today. He retired in, 2021. I got my dates incorrect, right, Kirk? Retired in 2021. He got fed up with COVID. No, that's not the truth. That's not the point. The fact is, he retired in 2021 to focus on what his real passion is. And he's currently completing a project, developing a business case called the Energy Remix in Canada for the Canadian Energy and Climate Nexus. And as well, he's developing a green hydrogen project in southeastern Alberta. And a 15,000 megawatt pump storage project in Northern Ontario. Kirk, we're going to get through some interesting points related to clean energy, related to climate change, what can and cannot be possible, and really think about this from an investor standpoint, from a business standpoint. That's what I really liked most about our introductory calls that we had discussing how you think about the world of clean energy. And I think, as we do with all our guests, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? What got you into engineering, and today, why do you do what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So thanks, Anthony, and thanks again for having me on. So, I'm a civil engineer. I did a master's in environmental engineering back in the 80s, just as the environmental world was kind of evolving. But like you said, I've worked in the energy and resource sector for over 40 years. My first job as a co-op student in 1978 was with Atomic Energy of Canada. We were working on the design of the Bruce B generating station. Wow. So I'm dating myself. But over the years, myself and my teams, we've designed and constructed energy resource projects, I think in 6 continents. And we've done, I've worked on oil and gas. At Cimarron, we designed Keystone and we designed Keystone XL.
Wow.
But then I started adding up. At the same time, our teams, we've designed over 6,000 megawatts of renewable energy. So we've seen oil and gas, we've seen hydro, wind, solar, storage, we've seen mining. And through all of this, I kind of came to the conclusion that the energy transition, I think, should be a good thing for Canada and Canadian industry. But I think the energy transition's got really 2 elements to it. The first is what I've called replace, which is replacing fossil fuels with electrons produced from clean sources. So like solar, wind, whatever, as the primary energy supply. And the second element is restore. And restore is restoring those fossil fuels that we're not using for energy and just make stuff out of them, make all the products that we use that are, if you look around your desk, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff made out of hydrocarbons. So the thesis is that keep producing hydrocarbons, don't burn them for energy, instead use them for making stuff. And so anyway, over my career, I thought there was a good business there. I've seen Canadian industry do all sorts of great projects. I think we're #1 in the world at it. And I've been very frustrated with the divisive discourse in the country about, energy or about renewables versus hydrocarbons. I just think they're all good and we should develop and export them all. So like I said, I was planning on retiring at Stantec, and my retirement plan was to do a PhD in this whole business case for energy transition. Anyway, I talked to my old alma maters and a few schools. I didn't get a lot of enthusiasm about it. And, everyone was keen for me to enroll, but no one really was enthusiastic about it. So I met this guy, Dave Millia, who was starting up the Canadian Energy and Climate Nexus. And it's an NGO. And basically, Dave's mission is to unite the country behind energy and climate policies so that they work for everybody. So anyway, we worked out a deal where I'm doing this project is a self-directed research project through the Canadian Energy and Climate Nexus. And it's looking at the business case. The project is titled Canada in Transition, an evaluation of the business case for the energy remix. And it should be completed in the next couple of months.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about exactly what your plan is for how we can transition here as a country?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, let me tell you first of all what I did. Okay, so we came up with a high level plan to get to net zero by 2050, and at the same time, develop manufacturing facilities for all those hydrocarbons that we took out of the energy system. So I came up with a plan, and we said we gotta, and I don't want to get into too many numbers here, but we said between now and 2050, we got to develop 85 gigawatts of new clean generation, so wind, solar, hydro, and nuclear. Got to upgrade the grid. You got to develop a network of EV charging stations. There's a whole bunch of hydrogen, renewable natural gas, and biofuels production that needs to come online. There's new carbon capture and storage facilities. And then there's a whole bunch of manufacturing facilities to process the hydrocarbons that we're not using for energy anymore. Anyway, the plan for this was to do the replace work was $1.8 trillion between now and 2050, or $63 billion annually. There was another 1.6 trillion to develop the manufacturing facility, so that was 58 billion annually. So total capital requirements between now and 2050 was $3.4 trillion. Okay. So then we went and surveyed governments, we surveyed industry, and then we surveyed the financial sector, as well as the NGOs, but really the keys were the government, industry, and the financial sector. And we asked them, so what are you thinking? Like, how much work are you thinking of doing to the industry? And to governments, we said, and government's financial sector, we said, how much money are you gonna invest or loan people? And then we compared that to the plan that we developed, and we did some high level IRR analysis to see if the things actually made sense. So I guess to answer your question, I think we can get to net zero. I think 2050 is pretty optimistic. Energy costs will need to increase. So I think, and so let me get into a couple of the actual, analytical points. If you compare what needs to be done to what everybody's thinking, there's about a third of the work is being planned. So for example, to bring on all the clean generation, we got to bring on 3 gigawatts a year. We're doing about 1 right now, okay? EV charging stations, we need to bring on 15,000 EV charging stations a year. We're doing about 1,000.
All these metrics you're discussing are just Canada, correct?
Correct, just Canada.
Canada to zero emission by by 2050. Okay, I just want to make that clear because you've done other discussions about the rest of the world, so we're keeping this Canada. Good.
Yes, this is just Canada. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, overall, we're doing about right now. There's about a third of the work being done, which would get us to net zero. So, for example, need to bring on 3 gigawatts of clean generation a year. We're doing about 1. 15,000 EV charging stations a year. We're doing about 1,000. So anyway, we're doing lots of work, but there's a pile of work to be done. At the same time, on the restore side, so developing manufacturing facilities for petroleum products, we're doing about 7% of what we need to do. So we're not even close on that. And my general observation is that side of the business is not a focus of anybody right now. It's certainly not a focus of government. It's not a focus in the financial sector. You know, like as projects come up, people look at them, but it doesn't have the real high priority that the whole replace hydrocarbons with renewables has. Okay, so that's what we found is there's lots of work being done. There's not enough to get 2050. And for a chunk of the business, largely the clean fuels side of it, so hydrogen, biofuels, renewable natural gas, the commodity price isn't at a level that really makes these things go right now. On the renewable energy side of things, I think the projects, I think they stand on their own right now at current commodity prices, like solar, wind, storage, like they make sense. But the whole clean fuel side of it, carbon capture storage, doesn't right now at current prices. Okay.
Talk to us about what the hurdles are, because obviously we're way behind. 1,000 gigawatts, we need to get to 3 per year, right?
1 gigawatt, we need to get to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to get 15,000 new EV stations. We got 1,000.
Yes.
And maybe that's roughly 1,000. I bet you're to get. So talk to us about what the hurdles are.
Yeah. So I would say there's 3 things. First of all, like there's a lot of work to be done, and these things take a lot of time to do. And regulatory is a big deal. And you know, the regulatory process, it's very it's important, and we have a good regulatory process, but it takes a long time. So physically, just to do all this work, I don't know if it can all be done in that amount of time. The second is that the rate of return for certain projects, which I think are largely clean fuels projects, carbon capture and storage, like I just don't think they make sense at the current commodity prices. So, you know, like if the price of carbon goes up, which it appears to be it's going to, then they make more sense. But right now, a lot of them don't make a lot of sense. And the third thing I've found, and I've found it personally right now, is there's lots of capital out there. There's lots of equity. There's lots of debt, but the initial development capital is tough to get, and there's just so much work involved in getting that, and the level of work you need to access that development capital. It's sort of a chicken and egg thing. Like you need to do a lot of work to get it, but you don't have the money to do it to be able to get it. So to me, once you've got offtake, once you got land, once you got regulatory certainty, there's piles of money out there to do projects. But getting that dollars in the door to do the work, to get your offtake button down, to get your land, to buy all your land, to get your regulatory certainty, that's the tough stuff. So those would be my 3 things, which I think are the hurdles.
And how do we get over those?
Well, I think on the time thing, I think it's just expectations. I think people should acknowledge that we're doing a lot of work. We're doing a lot of good work. Is the 2050 hard deadline, is that really critical? You know, it's important to push people along to do things, but maybe we just shouldn't get too excited about it. On the rates of return, I think that's going to be a market thing. If energy prices go up, these projects will make sense and they'll push ahead. And then the development capital, I think I'm never a proponent for big government, but I think the government has a real opportunity in this area to provide some initial seed capital that allows companies to be able to do the work required to attract the capital. So I think the government's got a good opportunity there. My experience with government programs is, governments don't want to look bad, and so they ask you to have as much stuff in hand as the other investors before they'll put dollars in. And I think governments have a real opportunity. The challenge with governments is they've got a short-term outlook.
And that is we've heard that time and time again from various different experts that we've had on our sessions. You mentioned to get the IRR to good levels, you intimated a couple times that commodity prices go higher. Maybe you could talk to that a little bit more. What specifically you're speaking about, and what sort of targets do you foresee natural gas, perhaps cost of energy itself, per megawatt hour, fossil fuel, oil? I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, so I think at current power prices, I think the clean generation projects and storage market's evolving, but I think at current power prices, the clean generation and storage probably makes sense. I think on the clean fuel side, I say clean fuels is hydrogen, renewable natural gas, and then biofuels. The analysis we've done, and then carbon capture and storage as well. The analysis we've done suggests that you need a carbon price, north of $100. I think the range we came up with was sort of $100 to $185. And if carbon was priced at that level, then those projects make all sorts of sense.
Where are they priced now?
Well, the federal price is $50 right now, and then carbon credits. I don't understand that market at all, but they seem to be in that sort of range. Although I've heard people are paying a lot more for that, but I don't have a lot of substantiation for that.
Do you foresee? So, what would you see the WTI goes to from here, or natural gas, in order to make these projects make sense?
Well, just for example, I would say, I know in British Columbia, for example, the BCUC that's the BC Utilities Commission, have approved, they will allow the gas distribution companies to pay up to $32 a gigajoule for hydrogen and renewable natural gas. So they will, and what's natural gas going in for now, 4 or 5?
Yeah.
But they will allow, now, you can't fill a whole pipe with hydrogen or renewable natural gas. They've got limits on it, but they will allow you to charge the customers $30 or pay $32 for this stuff. So, $4 and $5. So at $32, hydrogen and renewable natural gas look pretty good.
Yeah, but we're a long way from $32.
That's right. Yes. But it was a very important decision, is that they allow the distribution companies to pay up to $32 and then put it in the rate base. What
about for oil and the replacement there, EV and hydrocarbons as well? Biofuels, I know you talked about.
Yeah, well, biofuels, again, the numbers we've done is that at a carbon price north of $100, those things kind of make sense. How does that translate into cents per or dollars per liter? I haven't really done that. I haven't done that math.
But you think that basically there's tailwinds for the oil price to stay high as well in order
to absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about sort of, and if anyone has any questions, these are live, so just scroll down to the bottom of your screen and hover over Q&A, and be happy to make sure that Kirk addresses your question. You said, so it sounds like 2050 is probably not realistic. What can we do? I know you've talked about biofuels, you've talked about various other things. What can we do to get to show progress between now and 2050?
Well, I think just keep doing what we're doing. Like we are doing a lot of work. Canada is the 7th largest consumer of renewable energy in the world. Like we're doing all sorts of stuff. I just don't think we give ourselves enough credit for it. You know, I think the other thing we can do is market all of our energy and resources, not just electrons or not just molecules, market it all. Another metric I came up with was Canadian energy on an aggregate basis emits 1/3 less greenhouse gas than the rest of the world. Like, and that's not oil and gas specific. It's not electricity specific. It's if you aggregate it all together. So if we switched over the world onto Canadian energy tomorrow, 100%, greenhouse gases would drop by 1/3. like that would be progress. Now, you know, there's a bunch of work to do that, but I think to me, that's the stuff is we should be acknowledging the work that we've done and celebrating it and promoting it. So that would be the number one. And you know, as far as doing more work, again, I go back to those original couple of points there. Anything we can do to expedite the regulatory process would be good. I think renewable projects are going to get harder to do because everyone's doing all the easy ones right now. They're going to get harder to do consultations. There's going to be more consultation required. And then, you know, that access to initial development capital, if we can do, and to me, I go back to, is that an appropriate role for the government? I think it is.
Now, I know you have a lot of experience trying to raise capital as well. So you've dealt with investors and understand the markets. You're not just an engineer that's, you know, wandering around with a propeller on your head, which is good.
Well, I'm a little bit of that. I know enough about raising capital. No, I don't know very much. So.
No, but what I'd like to discuss is this whole concept of ESG, because we bucket things and say, hey, you know what? Okay, we're going to put some money to ESG investing, so we'll buy some renewable stocks, renewable companies. We'll buy some of the parts and suppliers. What do you think of this, and how should we sort of perhaps think about ESG investing?
Yeah, you know, Anthony, I thought about that last night. Actually, while I was watching the baseball game, but I thought about that last night. And you know, I go back. I took my ICD director's education program. I did that, I think, 10 years ago.
Yep.
And they gave us a book to read, and it was called "Fixing the Game: Bubbles, Crashes, and What Capitalism Can Learn from the NFL." It was by Roger Martin there at U of T. And anyway, you know, it was a tough book for an engineer to read, but I took out of that, the one thing I took out of that is really, he had a section in there, and it really said, if you look after your staff, you look after your clients, and you look after your community, the business usually sorts itself out. And my take after, you know, working in industry and leading some organizations is that was pretty good advice. And it's not really branded as ESG, but ESG is really that. Looking after your clients first, looking after your staff, and looking after your community. So I think if you think in those terms, I think all those things make good business sense. So I think there is a good business case for the energy transition, because I think it all aligns with those sorts of things.
So what type of should we just continue to investing in renewable companies here in Canada, some that are doing wind or solar? Does that make sense, or are we just not there yet from the standpoint of where commodity prices are to make those businesses economic?
Yeah. So you mentioned there, I'm involved in 2 companies. Like since I retired, you know, I'm doing my project with Canadian Energy and Climate Nexus, and through that I've got involved in two companies who are raising money, one for a green hydrogen project in Southeast Alberta and one for energy storage project in Northern Ontario. So I've invested in those things, and I've invested in, I've got some equity in them now. And to me, the energy storage project, it makes sense at current commodity prices. Like it does. The green hydrogen, it doesn't, but you can see the movement towards there. So I think they do. I think they do, and I think I think it's a great opportunity for all that stuff. But I think the key to it is to get out and promote it, and not just promote them all domestically, promote them globally, because that's our opportunities, the export market.
We got a question
Yeah.
it's being asked that the charging figure you quoted, the figures, that's for public stations, correct?
Correct. That's right. Yeah.
Now, the thing is, most EV charging is taking place at home, especially for owners, right? And now, leaving aside, if they live in a condo where it could be problematic, but do you think the grid could handle home charging if EV adoption goes well and most continue to charge at home?
In that $1.8 trillion of capital, there's a whole pile of it in there to upgrade the grid. And so there is a bunch of work that needs to be done, because, really the energy transition is predicated on a bunch of electrification. So loads go up, and so there's a pile of work into the grid. Now, at the same time, there's a bunch of work that needs to be done to the grid anyway in terms of replacing aging infrastructure. So there are probably some economies to scale. Like, there's a bunch of work to be done to fix to upgrade the grid anyway, just because a lot of it's old. And so, there's some economies of scale to be done by, doing all that stuff at once. But if you look at the breakdown of that $1.8 trillion, there's a bunch of it in there for the grid.
So, in other words, the current infrastructure could not handle everybody EV.
No, definitely not.
And do you think it could even handle 15,000 new charging stations per year?
No, because there's a pile of work to be done to do that. Like that 1.8 trillion was, and you got to do that between now and 2050. So it's a bunch of work. And the transmission distribution upgrades, like they're tough jobs, and the approvals requirements for those are tough.
We can't even figure out among ourselves getting pipelines to send out what we already have an abundance of, which you very well spoke about, the fact that we generate with said production a third lower overall emissions than the world would produce for the same level of production of energy, which is fantastic. But we can't get our head around getting it to port. And now you're going to tell me that we're going to spend another 3.4 trillion, that's with a T, like this, like a timeout. I want to take a timeout here on this, to get to being able to produce, to be able to, get to zero emissions. Like, where are we going to get all this money?
Well, I looked at how much the industry, their capital spend over the past 15 or 20 years, and you do the math on an annual basis. The spend is, like, it's a lot, but it's not out of line with what the industry's done. At the peak years back in 2012 to 2013, like, the capital spend at that time was comparable to what we need to spend. But at the same time, there's work to be done keeping existing production going, and then all this new stuff. So it's a big task, and that's why I think 2050 is maybe a bit, it's optimistic.
Yeah.
Can I tell you another regulatory story, just because I don't want to come across like I'm slamming the government's regulatory process. These things just take a lot of time. I'm building a house right now in Calgary, and I'm doing a net zero house. I got solar and I got geothermal I'm putting in. So I'm hooking up to the grid. I'm not going to hook up the gas. But anyway, I got a whole bunch of solar panels I got to stick on my house, like a lot of them, because I got to run this crazy geothermal system. Anyway, we've got architectural controls in our neighborhood, and the architect there doesn't want me putting solar panels on the front of my house, and that's why I've got some good south exposure. So just at that micro scale, like that has taken me a whole bunch of time and probably some dollars just to sort out my solar panels on my individual house. So I don't want to make like this is all a government issue. This is just the way we are, is we consult with a lot of people and we try to make everybody happy.
Yeah, welcome. But at the end of the day, if what you're saying is true, and judging by the way, the number of issues, if I just had to make a list, I'd see we need to deal with the grid. But in the meantime, we need to deal with inflation. We need to deal with reducing the debt. We need to deal with the fact that not everybody can afford a house. We need to deal with an aging population that requires health care. Should I go down the list? Oh. And so the question then becomes, if you're saying we don't get to, by 2050, we don't get to zero emissions, what happens to climate change? We're already seeing there are lakes that where it is rising, and you're seeing that there's been restaurants in certain Muskoka lakes where the water actually has come up to the level within the ground of the bar. So what do you foresee for that? Is that in your analysis? Because I think we need an impetus, and the impetus, people don't change until they're uncomfortable.
Well, I think the big opportunity is like, how do you pay for all this stuff? How do you deal with inflation? How do you pay for seniors and all that? You need to generate a revenue stream somewhere. And so to me, that's where the opportunity is, to go and develop and export it all. Like export, like we sell a lot of electricity to the States. We can sell a lot more. We can sell you can build like groups are doing undersea high voltage direct current cables, intercontinental ones. Great opportunity for Canada. So to me, that's the way, that's the opportunity here. Is the world needs more energy. We've got a ton of it. We're good at doing it. Let's just get going and do it and sell the stuff. And to me, that addresses the climate change, because we sell low carbon energy.
I just launched our poll so everybody can tell you what a great job you did. And
should I fill it out? I guess that'd be kind of self-serving to fill it out.
It's all good. It's all good. But we got another question coming in here. In your role, in our role, there's a good question, Mark, here you're asking. In our role, all of us here listening on the call, we help investors allocate capital. Where can investors track existing as well as progress in cost of generating power from various renewables, wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, etc.?
How can you do that?
Yeah, how can you track existing as well as progress in cost of generating power, etc.?
Okay, so how did I do it? Like, I've done a bunch of jobs, so I've got a database, and then I surveyed companies, so I got information from them. Probably the best place I would think is looking at the results of the auctions, like we have here in Alberta, and then the one you're going through in Ontario. Like they've got good numbers, and they're all public. So I would say, going through the ISO and the IESO in Ontario and the AESO here in Alberta give you some good numbers there. But the other thing is, Anthony, when I get our report that we're going to publish, it'll have a lot of that stuff in it.
No, and we'll share that with our group here, with your permission, and perhaps we'll have you back on. It'll generate some questions here to have follow up, and we'll have you back on. We got another good question in here. Ben's asking, 3 trillion, obviously quite a bit of money. to implement.
3.4 trillion.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, what's 0.4 trillion among friends? Another 300 billion, right? Quite a bit of money. Have there been any studies on what the costs would be if we do nothing? Because that's a good way of making the point of what I said. Essentially, if we do nothing, what happens? Well, can we put a cost on it?
So I haven't. There's there's a lot of good. There's a good book out there, Bjorn Lomborg. When you start talking again, I'll Google the name of it. But he's written a good book on just the whole, cost of climate change and what's the best dollars. So short answer is I haven't done it, but there is stuff out there. But again, I would look at the 3.4 trillion to me, I would look at as an opportunity for the country.
Yeah, but I think you want to do your IRR.
Yes.
You can do your calculation and include, if we do nothing, then you're going to have all these other costs to deal with. So it's 3.4 trillion versus X. And then I think then it'll be a much better, even more powerful, comparison. So I think we've got something to make your report even better.
Yeah. Hey, Bjorn Lomborg, False Alarm. That's a book. I read that book, and that's a good one to read. Very practical analysis of the whole climate change issue.
2 books we got so far: Fixing the Game, Roger Martin, and Bjorn Lomborg, False Alarm. I have Fixing the Game somewhere in my library here. Anyway, I don't know where it is, so I can't pull it out to show you. But that is an interesting one. I always like to ask our guests your favorite book.
So my wife will, I'll say it anyway. My wife will say I'm very shallow, but my favorite book is a John Grisham book, not about lawyers. It's called Playing for Pizza, and it's about an American third-string NFL quarterback who can't get a job in the United States, and the only place he can get a job is playing in the Italian American Football League for the Parma Panthers. And that league is real. My friend and I were big football fans. We each read the book, and so we did a trip, 3 couples. We went to Italy and followed the adventures of Rick Dockery, who was the fictitious quarterback who played in the Italian American Football League, the Parma Panthers. Great book if you like Italy. If you like Italy, you like happy endings, and you like something that doesn't take very long to read, that's the one for you. Playing for Pizza.
Now, and your favorite podcast?
I'm going to sound really shallow there too. I got to say the ones I listen to are Spittin' Chicklets and Don Cherry's Grapevine. So sorry, so I've probably lost all credibility now.
No, I love the Spitting Chicklets. I don't know that that'd be my favorite, but I love it. Listen, Kirk, I'm wishing you all the best. Make lots of noise. Make sure that people understand what's coming and how we can deal with it. And it's good to put numbers around this stuff. So thanks for your time today, and continued success.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Yeah, cheers.
Bye.